Welcome to a special episode of the Hedgehog Watchdog. Special episode. It's Governor Debate Night out in Rapid City. Our own Tracey Quints is debating on TV with Kristi Noem and Jamie Smith. And then we're joined tonight by her running mate, Ashley Strand, who's in the bottom right corner. If you couldn't tell which one was her.
Yeah, I really hope you guys aren't confusing that
up. We're also joined tonight by Adam Jewell, our resident aquatic master of the seas, we'll call him. And Devin Saxon, of course, my co-host. Like I said, tonight, Governor's Debate actually starts in 4 minutes, supposedly. So real quick, I don't know, go around, tell us what you're hoping to see tonight, maybe. How well is she going to do? Is she going to knock out Noem?
I think she's going to do great. We've been doing lots to prepare for this, and yeah, I think she's going to do awesome, just judging by the practice that we've done.
Well, I'm excited to see what will happen. Like you said, you've been doing some preparing. Noem's been getting a ton of national media attention. Half of her campaigning's been out of state. So it'll be interesting. I feel like it could get some national media attention tonight, and I think Tracey will make us proud, make us look good.
Hell yeah.
Are you pulling that up then, Devin, or the video?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for them to post the link to it, or unless that's not going to be on their Facebook page.
Did you try their website, dakotanewsnow.com?
I'll try that.
Got some Sam Adams Oktoberfest. What are you guys drinking on?
Zero sugar Major Melon Mountain Dew.
Ooh. Did you try that Flamin' Hot?
Yes, I really like it.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. I think it's good.
There's a gas station down by me. It's on clearance. They must have bought a truckload of it because they got like 12 packs for like $1.
Yeah.
What are you drinking, Adam?
I have a little cooler over here, so I don't have to keep going back upstairs every time I want to drink. But I got one Bud Light in it and 4 White Claws, so I'm hoping that'll last me through the debates.
Devin, what are you drinking? Nothing. Well, anyway, we thought about doing a drinking game tonight. Somebody brought up that question. Sean, one of our viewers, he says he's drinking Budweiser. So, good job. Daryl Root actually told me this at Freedom Feast, that Sam Adams is the only big American brewing company left, in American owned. All the other ones have been bought out by national corporations. Anyway,
they've said that like a lot of people that are into like the microbrews and stuff, a lot of those microbreweries are owned by the big, Anheuser-Busch and all that.
I think that's the dream, honestly, is just to get bought out. It's kind of like tech. It's like you don't even really have to have that great of a product. It's maybe just a good concept. And then you have some big corporation that comes in and buys you out, and you can retire.
Oh.
Oh, Steve Minogue checking in. Woodford Reserve on the rocks. Sounds fancy.
Drink an extra one of those for me.
I don't know that I've ever had that, but it sounds fancy.
Didn't he bring some to Freedom Feast?
Oh, yeah, I think you might be right.
Oh, right there. Devin, if you want, I think I was able to share my screen down there. So if you want to use that later, I think we can. It'll work, and it might be fast. Just throwing it out there for you, buddy. Your call.
Whoops. Yep.
Get rid of some of my tabs down here at the bottom.
Yeah, that was some good stuff.
Well, shoot.
Will I have to reload the video, or should it kick back on in here?
I think you got to play it.
Is it up right now?
Maybe not. Just remember, the Hedgehog Watchdog is a free podcast.
Oh,
The tech support is what you get. Oh, there we go.
Representative Smith.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me here today, Brian, Alicia. It is great to be here, and thanks for the people at home for tuning in.
Yeah, I can hear it.
An informed decision about who you vote for is so important. Now, I come from teachers. My wife's a teacher. My mom worked in special ed. My dad's a math teacher. I myself was a teacher and a coach. And then later I had to change over to business to make a better living for our family. But in doing so, it gave me the opportunity to be in the South Dakota legislature. And when I was in the South Dakota legislature, I've been able to understand what it is that people are looking for in a leader. And what they're looking for is somebody that they can trust, somebody that has the integrity to lead the state, and somebody that will work on their behalf. And that's exactly what I want to do as governor. So thank you for this opportunity.
Governor Nome.
Well, good evening. I'm Governor Christine Nome, and I'm not just your governor. I'm also a wife, a mom, and a grandma, and I've also been an employee and an employer. All of these experiences have made me who I am. While other states in this country were locking down, mandating masks and vaccines, South Dakota chose a different path. We stayed open for business, and today we have the strongest economy in the country. Our incomes are going up faster than any other state. Our kids are outperforming students than anywhere else in this great country. We have done incredible things together by making sure that parents have more control over their kids' education. We've also allowed them to have fairness in girls' sports and continue to defend their constitutional rights. We have incredible opportunities ahead, and I'm so looking forward to having this conversation tonight.
Ms. Quint, the first question goes to you. Governor Nome just 2 days ago proposed to permanently eliminate state sales tax on groceries. What is your position on that issue?
I think that's something that I definitely support, and I think that's something that's been a long time coming and should have been maybe looked at a long time ago. As a libertarian, I think that we should be doing everything that we can to reduce the tax burden on the citizens of South Dakota. And I think that, with that being said, we should definitely take a look into that, especially for things that are essential, such as food. We should be reducing the tax burdens on the people, and those things should be, be able to be bought without having the burden of taxes on top of them.
Representative Smith, you have been in favor of eliminating that tax for some time.
I think she's a little nervous.
Position on how the state would make up for the loss in revenue in eliminating that tax.
Well, first of all, thank you for the question, and thank you for the timeliness of it. We work very hard year after year, and we brought this bill that the governor now supports year after year. Year after year, it's been part of our strategy for what we want to do to help people in the state of South Dakota. Because food tax is one of the most regressive taxes there is. And so I'm glad that, the governor now sees that this is what we can do to replace the revenue. There are lots of different things we can look at. And one of them would be by using the tax that we get when we approve marijuana here in the state. I just find the timing, though, of this ironic because the governor definitely didn't support this last session. And now 5 weeks before an election, it's a great idea. So that becomes an interesting thing that was done here, I believe, to stoke the fire here and try to get some people fired up to vote.
Governor Nome, in responding to Representative Smith, this is a different position that you're taking now. How do you respond to people who say that this is just a political tactic?
Well, it's not a different decision. I supported and looked at repealing the sales tax on food and groceries last year during legislative session. In fact, my team in the office worked on it for several days. We worked with our Department of Revenue to see what the impacts would be to the state budget. As I cross the state and I'm in community after community over and over again, I'm hearing about how they've been devastated by the rising inflation, by the policies coming out of this White House and Joe Biden that's supported by Jamie Smith. It's driving up gas prices, but also food costs. Their grocery bills are incredibly difficult for them to make ends meet while they're paying those increased costs for milk, eggs, basics that they need.
What's
So
that
I'm
clicking
thrilled to
sound?
propose and deliver for South Dakota
It's
a
Greg
largest
typing.
tax.
Sorry.
Greg, stop typing.
It'll be $100 million tax cut, and we're going to pay for it because we've already increased our revenues by growing our economy.
I need to respond to that.
Well, we'll stick with
Wow, that was the fakest smile I've ever heard
I'll move on to the next question.
or seen.
Don't get a time for rebuttal. She mentioned my name.
Well, if I let you do it, I have to let everybody do it on every question. So let's just stick with that. And we can come back to you. But we'll go to the next question.
Representative Smith, good evening.
Good evening.
Mayors and law enforcement officials have publicly said they are not in favor of recreational marijuana. They say that legalizing the drug will not cut down on the black market and would actually negatively affect public safety.
Who said that?
In response to those concerns, and are you in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana? And you have 2 minutes for that response.
Yes, I am in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana. Actually, that was more popular in the last election than our current governor. And so, marijuana was something that the people voted for. And I believe the will of the people should be followed. When you vote for something, that is something that, as a leader, you need to listen to what the people say. And when the people tell you something, you need to follow through on that. And so we were very disappointed in the last couple of years that we weren't able to implement that. I know through working through the process that we will have the most robust, safest policies in place in the state of South Dakota. And it can be done. So don't believe that it can't be. Don't believe what people are telling you. We know we can learn from other states and we can make the safest, best policy here for the state of South Dakota. I have a son in high school, and unfortunately, it's easier to get marijuana than it is to get beer when you're a student. It's just what kids tell me. And I tell you what, we need to do something about that. So from seed to sale, we're going to be able to understand where this product is coming from and make sure that it's safe. And so I will follow through. I will make sure that we have a legal product, and we will make sure that we follow through with the will of the people when they vote this November.
Governor Nome, good evening. South Dakota voters approved recreational marijuana in 2020, but you helped to direct a lawsuit that ultimately led to the measure being ruled unconstitutional because of the way it was written. As you know, marijuana is on the ballot again this coming November. Do you have any reason to challenge the measure this time around based on its wording? And if the measure passes, would you fight it? And you have 1 minute, Governor Nome.
Well, the people will decide.
It's election time.
It appears to be written constitutionally. So if it does pass, I will implement it. And this goes back to really what authority a governor has and what authority that they don't have. We had this discussion during the pandemic when so many times people were asking the government to do things that they didn't have the authority to do. Remember that before the pandemic even started and any decisions were made, I sat down with my general counsel. I sat down with constitutional experts, and I wanted to know what my authority was and what authority I didn't have, because I believe that when leaders overstep their authority, especially in a time of crisis, that's really when we break our country.
What's that got to do with
My
marijuana?
job when I got sworn in as your governor was to uphold the South Dakota Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and when those ballot measures pass that are unconstitutional, it's my job to look at them. This appears to be written constitutionally, therefore, if it passes, I will implement it.
Ms. Quints, do you support recreational marijuana, and what of the concerns about public safety if it should be approved?
I definitely support the passing of recreational marijuana. I want to see the will of the people to be carried out this election. And if that's what happens, if people elect that they want to have recreational marijuana legal, we need to work to make sure that that is implemented. As far as the safety concerns go, I think it's definitely, if we can manage where the marijuana is coming from, if we can manage how it's being produced, we can make sure that the product that it ends up coming through is safe and that we're not putting dangerous products on the street. And, you know, we need to remember that as the government, we're working for the people. The people aren't working for us.
Thank you, Ms. Quint. And staying with a similar theme with this next question, and we'll be beginning with Governor Nome. Medicaid expansion on the November ballot. Many have said that having citizens vote on specific issues during elections is one of the best ways to understand what voters really want. But the state seemingly has a history of not abiding by voters' decisions, notably recreational marijuana 2020, ethics structure in 2018. Both were challenged or overturned by the state government. If voters approve Medicaid expansion, would you commit to carrying out the will of the voters on this issue? And Governor Nome,
Well, once again, looking at this measure, it appears to be written constitutionally. So if the people pass it, it'll be implemented.
When the hell did
But
she ever
let
care
me
about a
cover a few
constitution?
facts on Medicaid in our state. Medicaid covers healthcare costs for those today in our state that are living in poverty, that may be single moms struggling to make ends meet, some senior citizens, and those that are disabled. What expansion would do would be cover more individuals. It would cover the majority of those would be younger individuals that are single, able-bodied, able to go get a job and a career here in South Dakota and have the potential to earn benefits that would pay their medical bills. The approximate cost to the state of South Dakota would be in the future up to $80 million per year. And that is something that we would have to figure out how to pay for. So I think when looking at this decision on the ballot, it's good to have the facts of who would be covered, how much it would cost, and know that we have a responsibility in South Dakota to balance our state budget. Listen, we've always been fiscally responsible. South Dakota has a constitutional requirement to balance the budget, and we've done that. In fact, since I've been governor, we put more money into reserves than we've ever done before in our history. We have a AAA credit rating, the best pension fund in the nation, and we're continuing to grow and have the strongest economy in the country. That's something to be proud of, and we need to continue to maintain far into the future for the benefit of our kids and our grandkids.
Ms. Quint, 1 minute on the topic of Medicaid expansion in South Dakota.
Like I've said before, like we work for the people. So if that's what they vote for, that's what we'll work to implement. We'll work to do it in the best way that we possibly can, the most fiscally responsible way that we can implement it. I do believe that there are other ways that we can reduce medical costs besides utilizing Medicaid expansion. But you know, I'll be working for the will of the people, and if that's what they want in the state, I will work to make sure that that's what happens.
Representative Smith, 1 minute on Medicaid expansion.
You know, Medicaid expansion is so important for the state of South Dakota. I can't even tell you. I want to tell you a quick story about my wife. We do have insurance, and she was able to go.
Let me tell you about a guy named
because of that insurance.
Popcorn.
A little tiny spot. They said, let's do a biopsy.
Old Popcorn had one leg.
That's something that looked right.
And he couldn't afford insurance.
Well, because of the early diagnosis, he didn't have to do chemo or radiation or any of those things. And what was able to be done was he was able to be 6 years old.
Hey, that's that old Will Ferrell. I don't know what to do with my hands.
3 kids, worried about how to pay the bills, works really hard. The employer doesn't offer insurance, decides to look after her kids instead of taking care of herself. Well, that choice right there.
He just made a dig.
Life. We could help that woman by expanding Medicaid and giving her the opportunity for the insurance she needs to lead a healthy life and be there for her kids.
Shit's getting heated up.
Governor Nome, you just mentioned that the cost to expand Medicaid would be $80 million a year. In fact, you have said that you don't support expanding Medicaid because of the tax increases that would have to happen to pay for it. The fiscal note for Amendment D, which is on the ballot, notes that Medicaid expansion would produce cost savings that would cover 98% of the state's Medicaid expansion cost. So the net annual cost to South Dakota, based on the Amendment D fiscal note, would be around $750,000. Is the information on the state's ballot for Amendment D true or false?
Looking at an analysis of that ballot measure, it doesn't look into the future, what costs would be there, what the responsibility of the state government would be, And looking 3-4 years down the road, we're anticipating that the annual cost for that Medicaid expansion ballot measure would be $80 million. And listen, one of the things that I'm incredibly proud of is my work on what we've done in policy and healthcare in this state. I proposed and brought forward and completed bringing high-speed internet access to every corner of the state, so that those people who lived in smaller communities that had a tough time getting to healthcare, not only could they get internet access, they also could get healthcare access right there at home without having to drive all the way across the state to get it. We've also increased transparency on insurance costs for people, so they knew exactly what insurance was going to cover and what they weren't going to cover. And we made sure that we were going forward and delivering more mental health care for those individuals in our state. So knowing what your healthcare costs are incredibly important, and looking at it from a state budget standpoint is important as well. And that's why we put so much time into doing a true analysis of what each individual in the state could incur into the future.
Representative Smith, your response on the cost of the Medicaid expansion, especially in light of repealing the sales tax on groceries.
Well, thank you. First of all, this has been a net zero in 39 states across our country. They have figured out a way to do this, 39 states across our country. And when the economists look at it, the same thing that you saw on the fiscal note that was written for this is what they've been finding in states upon states across the country. So there's a lot of scary things being said about this. But what's so scary about
Tracey
providing
needs to
people
put
with
her
the
hand
opportunity
movements
to
by
get the
her head when
health
she
care that they
talks.
need? Healthy people can work.
She needs the Vogue.
Can work, and that's so important for our state. That workers
Oh my God.
are able to be at work and to do the job. They're filling those jobs is an important thing right now. It's very hard for our employers. So let's do everything we can to make sure our state is healthy and these folks can get the medical care they need. Expanding Medicaid is one way to do that, and I support it 100%. And it will not cost our state what the governor is saying.
And Ms. Quint, your response on how you would deal with the cost of a Medicaid expansion.
Ooh.
Well,
Slash it.
being a libertarian myself, adding extra costs to our state is something that I would shy away from personally. But working with other ways to try to look at what other things that we're funding as a state and where some of the bloat in our government might be, taking a look at that. I do think that there are ways that we can save money within other realms of government waste and whatnot. I like I said, adding that much cost to our state as far as healthcare concerns go, is something that I would definitely take a look at and try to find other ways of saving money in that realm.
All right, thank you. Now to the next question. Governor Nome, recent polling from South Dakota News Watch shows that 65% support leaving the legality of abortion in the state up to voters.
Shit.
Would you support that, or should the decision be left to state lawmakers?
Well, what's in this country today is that the decision is made by the states. And South Dakota had a law that was passed in 2005 that today is the law of the land here. And every state will look different and make different decisions. And this is really about supporting women. That's why we've put forward more opportunities for people to come alongside.
No, it's not.
And to make sure that they have the opportunity to get healthcare costs covered, that they have unexpected costs in housing and budget costs met, and that people can come alongside them and support them. We also have connected individuals to services that can help them through difficult times that are unplanned, make sure they're connected with families that may want to pursue adoption or foster care. But really, one of the priorities that I'm passionate about is this next legislative session is that we'll be bringing a bill to the legislature. I hope that they'll support unpaid family leave, making it easier for businesses to offer that for so many families so they can stay home with their families as well. And then also for daycares across the state. They say they can't get a workforce because they can't offer benefits. We're going to ensure that they have the opportunity to do that as well, so they can recruit the workforce that they need to support those kiddos and allow people to go to work knowing that they're in a safe environment. It's incredibly important that we are supporting our families. And if I cross the state over and over again, what I keep hearing is that Jamie Smith's values are too extreme for South Dakota. Supporting the kind of agenda of marching with BLM and supporting critical race theory And the open border that we have is just not what aligns with South Dakota and doesn't align with our way of life.
Has
What is
nothing to do with the
it?
question, lady.
Ms. Quints, your
Damn.
response on whether or
She
not
really went, look over there.
I would argue that the issue of abortion shouldn't be left to either one of those groups. I think that's an issue that should be left to the individual involved and to their medical professional. It's a medical decision, and I don't think a majority of the voters or a majority of politicians have a medical degree and have the ability to make that decision for somebody. You know, if it's a health issue, we should leave it up to the healthcare professionals and the individuals involved. We can't put our own, you know, values onto somebody else's decisions. I think that's a personal and medical decision that somebody has to make themselves.
Hell yeah, Tracey.
Representative Smith, your response
Woo.
to Governor Noem's comments that your positions are too extreme?
Come on, man.
Simply not true. We're running an election here and we're trying to get people to be scared. That's not true, and that's not my record. You know, people can look at Jamie Smith and they can look at the work that I've done across
Why
Seattle.
does he talk about himself in the third person all the time?
About abortion.
That's what politicians do.
Mom
You got-
goal.
We now have
You
one
got to start
just law,
talking, saying Ashley when you're referring to yourself.
and women
Gross, no.
are going to die if they haven't already because
No
of this.
thanks.
Ashley Strand does not stand for that.
Raped should be forced to carry that baby to term. That is not compassion. That's not what we should have in South Dakota. We need to make sure there are exceptions for rape and incest in the state of South Dakota. And we need to make sure that the doctors are able to do the jobs. Doctors need to be able to provide medicine here in the state of South Dakota. And that's become quite clear with my friends that are physicians calling me and saying they don't know what they can do because the law is not clear. And they are very worried that they will be in trouble for practicing medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Governor Noem, following up on that, the same polling that I mentioned shows that 76% support abortion in cases of rape and incest, exceptions that are not currently allowed in South Dakota.
$100 says she pivots
Would you
hardcore.
support those exceptions?
Well, I want to clear up what Jamie just said. The media has distorted what I said. It's wrong and ridiculous to keep repeating it over and over again like he just did. Listen, I am who I am. I'm pro-life. Today, the states are making the decision, and I believe that that's more appropriate than that happening at the federal level. That's what the Roe decision did, and I think that we in the state need to continue to have a discussion on every single issue. Listen, when I cross the state, what people are the most concerned about day after day, hour after hour, what I'm hearing from them is they're struggling. They're struggling because they can't pay their grocery bill. They're struggling because
nothing to do with it.
gas prices. And remember,
There
in
it is.
South Dakota, it's hot in the summer and it's cold in the winter, and winter is coming. And it's a long
Winter.
No, she didn't. She did not.
been better here than any other state in this country.
What the
which I'm
fuck is
thankful-
that? Sorry, but
I'm
what the
thankful
fuck?
our incomes are going up
Anything.
strong. In fact, they've gone up
Winter's
20%
coming.
the last 2 years. We can be proud of that. But I also know that
Hedgehog watchdogs for the children. So
policies.
Sorry.
No, as much as she trashes Joe Biden, didn't Joe Biden
just
say
saw-
a cold winter is coming if we don't get our vaccination shots?
Well,
She
to
just
be
stole the
clear, I am
sign.
pro-life, and I've been clear on this issue. And I am what I am right now. The decision in South Dakota is that the law stands that was passed in 2005. And
Because
that's
mom
a
said
discussion
so.
we'll have in the future.
Representative Smith, your response?
Well, it's clear that I'm not the one that has extremist opinions on this bill
He's got a point.
or on this topic. It's clear to me that South Dakotans overwhelmingly support a woman's right to make choices, especially at some point in pregnancy when certain things happen. And so we need to make sure that we help people. The government should not get in the way. We talk about freedom all the time. We talk about freedom all the time, except the freedom to make this choice, the freedom for women to get the medical care that they need. So I want to be clear. I think my stance is clear, and I don't think it's radical. I think it's what most South Dakotans want. And also, the governor doesn't remember who she's running against here. I'm Jamie Smith from South Dakota. I'm a moderate, middle-of-the-road guy who works across the aisle to get things done with people.
At least
And
he
I make
remembers.
friends to get it done.
I hope she says she's Tracey Quints.
Respond.
I think I would just echo what I said before. This isn't an issue that should be in the hands of the voters or in the government at all. This is definitely a medical decision and a personal decision that needs to be made between a person and their medical provider.
Governor Nome, you've been the subject of 2 ethics complaints that were recently investigated. One of them over your involvement in your daughter's real estate appraisal license. You have denied any wrongdoing. But what is your response to people who believe you may have abused your power as governor in that situation?
Well, this
Winter's
matter
coming.
And it is something that is very clear that my daughter never once received special treatment. And let's remember that these investigations, these ethics complaints were filed by a disgraced attorney general. An attorney general who killed a man, left him in a ditch, and then tried to cover it up. And I was the only one who was strong enough to say that he needed to resign.
No, you weren't.
Remember that the attorney general is the top law enforcement officer in the state.
No, you
and I
did
didn't
not.
carry on in that position. So that's where these complaints came from. And when I hear from people,
Yeah, everyone called for him to resign.
or to them about their kids' education,
She was the only one, don't you
that
remember,
they
Greg?
believe that they're suffering because of Joe Biden.
The hedgehog watchdog was
That
the
has
only one.
nothing to do with what you were
Smith
just
said that Joe
asked.
Biden represented the best of America.
Oh
Jamie
my
just said
God.
that he's not an extremist. I disagree. Look at his voting
I
record
hate her so
and
much.
his actions. His
Pivot,
own social
pivot,
media has
pivot.
pictures of him marching with Black Lives Matter on the very same night
Black
that
lives
riots and
matter
violence broke
bad.
out and damage was done, shots were fired throughout the city of
Shots were
South.
fired.
That's extreme, and that doesn't line up with what South
Oh,
Dakota
shut
holds.
up.
Shots are fired every night in Sioux Falls, lady.
Joe Biden's open border is threatening our state by allowing no
Rapid 2 at this point.
terrorist watch list into our country. Over 70 that we know of. Who knows how many we don't know of? Drugs are filtering into our communities because they're coming over that border.
This has
Jamie
nothing to
has
do
not
with the
called on
question,
President
lady.
Biden to close that border. He doesn't care about the drug problem that we're suffering because of that policy.
Well, and she said that they found nothing from that ethics thing, and she got in trouble from that ethics thing.
Not just what they say, and Jamie's actions and his voting record show his extreme policies.
And Governor Nome, taking all that into account, your response to people who believe that you may have abused your power as governor?
I follow the law at all times, and I follow the precedent set
I
by
do
other
like that the
governors, and
guy's
my
like being
daughter
like, hey,
received
so
no
answer the
special
original
treatment.
question.
These complaints were filed by
Yeah.
a disgraced attorney general as political retaliation.
Nobody cares.
That because I was strong and asked him to step down from his position.
Just because we have a disgraced
that
attorney
this is
general
how he
doesn't mean we
decided
don't have a disgraced governor as
legislature
well.
impeached him and also said he could never run for office ever again because
He
what
did a worse bad thing, so my
I
bad
agree
things
with
didn't
that. Well,
happen.
they did that.
Don't listen to
Remember
him.
where these complaints came from. They're political
I'm
retaliation,
gonna
and
get
it's been
hammered
proven that I
for
did
as much
nothing
as I'm
legally
drinking
wrong, and
right
I
now.
followed the precedent of other governors.
I wish I
Ms.
was
Quints, when
hammered.
you look at the governor's actions in office, have there been any concerns raised for you?
Ooh, here we go.
I think whenever there's an issue of transparency within the government, I think that's an issue for the people of the state in question. And I think that's something that, as somebody who's not been a politician for a long time, this is my first real campaign. I would hope that as a future politician, that if there is an issue that comes up, like I'm able to work with the people of South Dakota and be transparent, and to increase the transparency within the government of the state. If there is issues that are coming up, I want to be upfront with the people of South Dakota. I want to talk to them about whatever their concerns may be, and I don't want to hide from whatever issues may come up.
Representative Smith, your response to Governor Nome's comments?
Well, let's be clear. She didn't really answer the question.
Well, she's true.
Okay, South Dakotans know the difference between right and wrong. She was investigated by a panel of judges, and those judges found her that there was malfeasance and wrongdoing. So to say nothing came of it, not true. The other part of it's not true is where the investigation originated. It originated with some legislators filing a petition. They filed it because they thought something was wrong. So the accountability committee within the legislature looked into that. And so please understand, South Dakotans, you know the difference between right and wrong. You know the difference between right and wrong. And I think that you can
Thanks,
see
Jamie.
through this one pretty easily.
build
So
up my confidence.
make
there,
sure
buddy.
that when you're elected to be the governor of South Dakota, you don't use your office for things that you shouldn't. It's pretty clear. That's what I have to say about that.
Governor Noem, I'm going to give you 30 seconds.
Well, that's just wrong. Both of those complaints were forwarded by the Attorney General, and we know what the Attorney General
We
did and why he
get
was
it,
removed from office.
lady.
It's very clear that we continuously have these attacks.
Well, forwarded isn't
For division.
necessarily the same.
Cause unrest like we see across the country, and that
9/11.
doesn't happen here in South Dakota. Listen,
That was so
things are happening.
2021.
We get along, we solve problems, and we do that together. We've done historic things here in our state, like putting in high-speed internet access, developing telehealth across the country to serve each other, by making sure we're growing our economy, creating jobs,
He's got a
that we're
point.
helping people be successful.
Oh my
We've got
God.
an incredible story to tell, and I've been telling that and continuing to attack over and over
Oh my
again.
And Governor
God.
Noem, I'm sorry, that's time.
In talking about transparency, in 2018, when Governor Noem was running in a hotly contested race for governor, she promised to throw open the doors of government if she won, working to build the most transparent administration South Dakota has ever seen. Representative Smith, you have promised to put the state's checkbook online and expand reporting requirements.
It
for
already is, isn't it?
politicians. Why is transparency in government so important?
Well, first of all, it's the people's money. We're doing the work of the people. And so when you're doing the work of the people need to know what you're doing. So one of the problems with the ethics complaint had to be the use of the state airplane. And we had all kinds of stories that were told us about why we couldn't know what the state airplane was doing. It was for safety reasons. It was for this or for that. Now, after pushing for a very, very long time, finally, people understand where the airplane got to go. You know what? A lot of times it was doing the work it's supposed to with flying around and doing state business. There are other times that it was being used for personal use. And that's what's being investigated right now. So transparency on what the state's assets are being used for is important. Transparency on who we're hiring to do certain things is important. You know what? As governor of the state of South Dakota, I'll also work to make sure we hire people within our own state. We will hire South Dakotans whenever possible to do the work that they need to do and not take contracts outside our state. We'll remember that when I'm governor, and we will focus on South Dakota jobs, working together to make sure that the money that we put into the state stays in the state of South Dakota whenever possible.
Ms. Quint, your response on the importance of transparency in government.
I'm sure she already said that, but okay.
Yeah.
It is the people's money that we're working with. And the role of the government isn't to, create laws and to, rule the people. The government is there to protect and serve the people, not the other way around. So we need to remember that when we have, the budget issues and stuff coming up, we need to tell the people where their money that they're giving the government is going. If it's being spent irresponsibly, they have the right to know that. If it's going towards, bloat with the government, they have the right to know that. So we need to let the people know where the budget is coming from and where the budget is going out of.
Governor Noem, your response on the importance of transparency in government.
Well, I want to remind everybody that I was the one who brought forward a reporter shield law. That's a law that allowed reporters to do their job, report on state government, not have to reveal their sources, so that they could do so without fear of consequences or ramifications or mistreatment in the future by penalizing them for covering the truth. Jamie Smith just lied to you, did not tell you the truth. The state checkbook is already online. I never once used the state airplane for personal use. We know why those ethics complaints were filed. It was because of political retaliation by a disgraced.
Oh my God, say it
All
again.
of those information that he just listed have been available and have been given over months and months and some even years ago. Listen, it's important to me that we are transparent here in South Dakota. We are. People over and over again are talking about what's going on in their lives, and they love the fact that not only is the state government accountable to them, but they're responding to them. They recognize that we passed fairness in girls' sports. We want to make sure that only girls play in girls' sports in our state. And that also we're making sure that our kids are learning a true and honest history. That's incredibly important to the families.
Governor Noem, I'm sorry, that's time.
That's
I'm sorry, that is time on.
Cut her off.
Ms. Quint, 2 minutes. If you are elected to office, what do you take action on day number 1?
Oh, good question.
Well, what I take action on day number 1 is I want to take a look at, where government is inefficient in our state. What are we spending too much money on? What do we have that's, a current law or a current, process that's not working? And what can we do to streamline laws and our current state government so that the people of South Dakota are spending less in taxes, are safer, and are happier as citizens? I think criminal justice reform is a big thing that we need to take a look at. And, we spend a lot of money putting people behind bars for crimes that don't necessarily have a victim, or nonviolent crimes, as I would say. And we need to take a look at, what are we doing to, rehabilitate people rather than to warehouse them within prisons. And I think that's one of the things that I would take a look at on day 1 is how can we turn people from being, incarcerated and return them to being, members of society that can work and, earn money and stimulate the economy. Other than that, I guess as a libertarian, I think that we should be looking at, what can we do to reduce the tax burdens on the citizens of South Dakota and to make sure that laws are fair and equitable to everybody.
Representative Smith, should you be elected governor, what are you doing on day number 1?
Day number 1, we're going to make sure that the people of South Dakota, understand that they have a new governor that's willing to sit down and work with everybody. And
I know
welcome
how to
everybody
sit down in
to
a
the state of
chair.
South Dakota. We're going to work for all South Dakotans. And in doing so, we need to make sure that we address some of our key issues: workforce housing, child care. The addiction thing that was just mentioned is huge. Addiction is not a moral failing. Addiction is an illness, and we need to treat it as such. We need to have a shift within government, and we need to work on that. But most importantly, we're going to work on the culture up here. We're going to work on one where we work together across the aisle, work with each other to try to solve real South Dakota problems that exist here in our state. And there are problems that do exist. And I'm also going to make sure that people understand that we're not going to import problems to our state for the sake of saying, hey, look, we solved a problem that wasn't here, but we look like we did something. And so those are the types of things that we're going to do when I'm elected governor on day 1, and it'll set the tone for our entire term.
Governor Nome, if you are reelected, what do you want to do on day number 1 of a second term?
Well, it's interesting because Jamie Smith hasn't brought forward one single bill that's been signed into law the last 2 years. And it's because of his institutions. It's hard to build coalitions, work across the aisle when you hold such extreme positions and policies and vote that way. In South Dakota, my priority this next legislative session is going to be paid family leave. We're going to give businesses more opportunities to offer that to their employees. We want, when mothers and fathers have new babies in their home, that they can stay home with them and take
So
care
what, a
of
government program?
or take care of family who are sick, so that they have the flexibility to do so. Also, we have a child care crisis in the state. We have a lot of open jobs, but we also hear a lot of parents who can't go to work because they can't afford daycare. Daycares tell us that they need workforce that needs benefits. We're going to make sure we're partnering with them to help provide those benefits so people can get back to work.
Between drought conditions, inflation, the war in Ukraine, severe weather, recovering from a trade war, it has been a tough stretch for farmers and ranchers as of late. What is one thing that you would do specifically to help members of South Dakota's #1 industry? Representative Smith, 2 minutes to you.
One of the things that we'd want to look at in the state of South Dakota is taxing farmland for actual use rather than the use that it is potential use. And that's what we're doing right now. There's a lot of cow-calf operations across the state of South Dakota that are being taxed on ag taxes that are being used for cropland. And that's simply never been cropland, it's grassland. So we should definitely look at that. But the other thing about farm and all the problems that we have across our state, they're bigger than just South Dakota. These problems are regional and even national in scope. So what I want to let people know is that I will work together with our neighboring states to make sure that South Dakota has a stronger voice. a stronger voice when we work on things. So when given the opportunity to go
That's a
to the
pivot.
Western Governors, conference meeting, I would go to that meeting. I would go to that meeting and not go to a fundraiser instead. I would go work with other governors to make sure that South Dakota farmers have a leg up that they need in order to do their job. Because we do need to keep people in the farm.
Uh-oh, what's Tracey going to say?
That they have every single tool in their toolbox to be successful. So lowering taxes is one, but also working together with our neighbors to make sure that we do everything we can for farmers will be a top priority in my administration.
Governor Nome, 1 minute. What would you do or what could you do to help South Dakota farmers and ranchers?
Well, I spent my lifetime farming with my family, and I'm a rancher as well and was for many years. My lieutenant governor was a West River rancher. We're proud of that. We're proud of the fact that agriculture is the #1 industry in the state of South Dakota. And not just the #1 industry, but it's 8 times larger than the next biggest industry in our state.
Except for they
Listen, our
tax the
farmers feed
crap
the
out of
world.
farmers.
We need to make sure that they have markets, that they can keep more of the profit in their pocket and take care of their families. That's why we gave grants to help meat processing facilities expand here so that we could add that value here at home. We also made sure that we need to drive down energy costs. That's why continuously we're advocating to make sure that we're fighting back against the policies coming out of this White House. I was the one who brought during the legislative session a bill that reformed our property tax system to allow our farmers and ranchers not to be taxed off their land. I'm very proud of that legislation because it allowed them to not have to sell off in order to pay the taxes that were due to their local communities. I'll continue to advocate for our farmers every day. I understand them. They're my family. They're also our way of life.
Governor Nome, thank you. Ms. Quints, 1 minute on South Dakota farmers and ranchers.
I think one of the things that we need to look at is being able to keep the ownership of South Dakota farms within South Dakota, and taking a look at, where, foreign ownership is coming from, and then keeping regulations to the point that, smaller farmers can afford to, farm that land and can afford to keep track of the land and the farms that they're in control of. So, if it's a regulation that's pricing them out of their own land or pricing them out of that farm ownership, we need to take a look at that and what can we do to reduce that burden on local South Dakota farmers so that they can keep farming within their family farms and the smaller farms as well.
Turning to education. Governor Nome, you've been very outspoken about critical race theory, ordering a review of the curriculum to weed it out. The review returned almost no instances of divisive topics being taught in South Dakota schools. Do you believe those results are accurate? And if so, how do you respond to people who say you're trying to solve a problem in South Dakota that doesn't exist?
Well, let's make no mistake. Critical race theory seeks to divide people based on the fact of race or sex or gender, and it seeks to divide people by our true history of the country. I believe that our children should learn true and honest history in their classrooms, and that it shouldn't be based on a Marxist ideology that seeks to divide. Here in South Dakota, we're ensuring that our kids are protected and allowing our parents to have more control over their children's education, more of a say in what they hear in that classroom, that they don't get an agenda from someone else, from a
doing that, you wouldn't be legislating it.
Someone who isn't an influence over their lives as far as raising them every day and paying the bills that allow that children to go far into the future and be successful in their career. I know that Jamie has voted to block bills that would have banned critical race theory in our legislature. That doesn't line up with South Dakota's values. South Dakota doesn't believe in racism, doesn't believe in dividing and teaching our kids an agenda in the classroom. I'm ensuring that our kids are protected, parents have more options and control over their kids and their education, and that we have the opportunity to unify our state by loving this country, the freedom that it gives each and every one of us every day, and how incredibly blessed we are to live in the United States of America.
Representative Smith, you yourself are a former educator. How do you determine what is a true representation of history?
Well, thank you for that question. And first of all, let's be clear here. I don't support teaching critical race in CRT in the classrooms of elementary school students because it's not being done. We didn't need that law. We need to let teachers teach. We need to respect the profession of education. And when she talks about curriculum, this is the most extreme thing we've done lately, social studies curriculum. We went to a very, very conservative school in Michigan to find a curriculum to teach here in South Dakota, leaving out our professional educators and our parents. Okay? The process was done 2 years ago. It was rejected. That was partisan. What we should do is follow the work that the teachers and our parents do here in the state of South Dakota to make sure that we are teaching what South Dakotans want us to be teaching.
Ms. Quint, you may respond.
As far as, teaching history in classrooms, we need to teach history the way it actually happens. Regardless of agenda, or there should be no agenda either way when we're teaching history in classrooms. We need to teach real and true history, though, in order for us to be able to learn from it. There are things that happen in our history that might not be a joy to learn about or whatever, but, ignoring it or pretending it didn't happen isn't going to help either. But I mean, we need to make sure that it's age appropriate either way as well. So, we're not going to teach certain things to kindergartners, and we're not going to teach certain things to fifth graders. But, we need to let the people that were trained to be educators to educate, and then we need to involve parents and the community in that education as well.
We're going to switch gears momentarily. We're going to talk about the pandemic for a moment here. We're going to begin with
It's over.
Representative Smith. Representative Smith, you
It's not
co-sponsored
over, Adam. I got it.
would have required face coverings
Sorry, my neighbor
inside
does
of
too, actually.
businesses and state-owned facilities. Many have accused federal, state, and local governments of overreach during the pandemic. So how do you justify that position to South Dakota residents? And you have 2 minutes.
I believe I was a co-sponsor of that. It was early in the pandemic. We were looking at the science that was out there. And when you look at the science and what they were telling us to do, that was what we thought we should do. I used to work in an operating room. One of my jobs that I had was working in an OR. And I know from a fact that when we worked in an operating room, you know what you wore? You wore face coverings. And you know why you wore face coverings? You wore face coverings because you wanted to keep a sterile field and you wanted to keep people safe. Now, face coverings, by doing little things, we could ensure that people stayed healthy and we kept businesses open. One other thing we forget to talk about when we talk about COVID is that over 3,000 people died in the state of South Dakota. And I want people to think about that. 3,000 people died in the state. And it's actually a larger number per capita than areas around us. At the time I made those decisions, was trying to make sure people in the state of South Dakota were safe. I wasn't playing political games, and I wasn't using COVID as a political football. That is not what you do when there is a pandemic. What you do when there is something bad going on like that is you work together. You forget the politics and you sit down and you talk to the doctors and the leaders in healthcare and you say, what is it that we can do together to make sure that people are safe and that people don't die?
Governor Noem, you continue to tout that South Dakota never really closed or shut down during the pandemic, but there are some who point to the state's death rate per capita as a concern. So how would you defend your administration's response to someone who would say that you prioritize business over public health?
We as a state and I as governor always prioritize the science and the facts that we had. And we looked at what was happening here in South Dakota and what we could do best together to protect people. Jamie just told us that he didn't do that. Instead, he wanted to mandate closures in the state, take that option away from our businesses, take that option away from families to make the best decisions for themselves and figure out how to keep food on the table. He wanted to also mandate masks, and even on our children in their classrooms, which we know now has been proven to be so detrimental to them and to their education. Jamie supported mandating vaccines for South Dakota workers. That just doesn't line up with how South Dakota sees the authority of government. It's not the authority that a governor has. He would have broken the South Dakota Constitution and the U.S. Constitution had he had that authority, and that's how you lose the country. He would have made wrong decisions, and I got up every single day thinking of you, following the science, and giving you all the information that I had so you could make the best decisions for you.
Representative Smith, I'm going to give you 30 seconds here.
Thank you. I mean, we have lies, more lies, telling me that I'm a liar. First of all, the question and what we talked about, I didn't say I was going to close businesses. I said we wanted to keep businesses open by protecting people so we could keep businesses open. So putting words in my mouth is not going to help. What we did know at the time is that when people wore face coverings because it was spread in the air, it protected people. You know, sometimes leaders have to lead by example. Leaders lead by example. And so in order to do that, you don't even need a mandate necessarily. You just got to do it, and people will follow. That's what I believe people should do.
Ms. Quints, you have a minute. How would a Quint administration walk that very fine line between protecting public health while preserving the state's economy?
I think that is a very fine line because, you know, keeping people away from each other and closing businesses down increases mental health between people. So it's kind of like trying to pick and choose which health issue is worse, the mental health or the, you know, physical health. As far as, you know, keeping, I 100% believe in keeping businesses open. And I also believe in a personal choice. And I think that's something that we've been kind of touting is like allowing people to have personal choice in the issues that pop up for them. And, you know, I don't think we get to pick and choose which issues we allow personal choice in. So if people want to wear masks, they can wear masks. If they don't feel the need to, that's also a personal choice as well. And I don't think that the government has a place in mandating people's personal choices regardless.
Governor Nome, you have refused to participate in a debate with South Dakota Public Broadcasting because your campaign said it had an extreme leftward slant.
Ooh.
Just yesterday, your campaign raised the same concern for this debate. In 2018, you ran for governor promising transparency. Why are you hesitant about answering questions from those who may
I
not
like
agree
that
with
they're
you
attacking
about
her.
the
I really
public
do.
office?
Dude, this is a bad
Well,
jab.
I'm here right now with all of you, having a conversation about the concerns of South Dakotans and what they want addressed in this state and how we can best help them be successful. They're concerned about inflation. They're concerned about higher costs. They're concerned about the security of our nation, what's happening from this White House, and how it's devastating them into the future if it continues and goes on. Listen, I proposed this week the largest tax cut in South Dakota history. People are thrilled by that because it's for grocery store items, for things they need every single week to feed their families. It's going to be $100 million right back into the pockets of South Dakotans, and it's to help protect them from Joe Biden and those that support
And why are you afraid to debate?
Take a drink, Joe Biden. I'm out of beer.
Line up with this state. And that is what I'm going to continue to focus on.
I switched to
Doing what I
kombucha. It's kind of alcoholic.
South Dakotans be protected from the
Fermented, right?
but
Yeah.
also allow them to have opportunities to be successful far into
Greg, are we having an after show after this?
Representative Smith, so much of the
Sure.
Few minutes or whatever if you want. Yeah.
we're not listening to each other.
Dissect it.
Talk to people who don't necessarily agree with your positions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I'd like to talk about that last answer that you just had. That wasn't an answer to the question. I'd love to have more opportunities to debate. I'd love to have more opportunities to talk about these very issues that we're talking about here today with you, because it's so important for the voter to have the opportunity to hear the differences between us, because voters need to make informed decisions.
Quit pointing at just her. You got
So I'm
another one
honored
up
to
there,
be here today,
Jamie.
and I'd be honored to be in any other debates moving forward.
Thank you. Ms. Quint, your response.
Well, being a libertarian, I am completely honored to be invited to a debate like this. And I think this is an awesome opportunity for people to get a chance to hear from a different voice. We hear a lot of, you know, the two-party system, the Republicans. We hear a lot of the Democrats. It's really a cool opportunity to be here and say, you know, we do have more options in our country. It's not just a two-party system, or it doesn't have to be anyways. We really want people to know that, you know, it doesn't have to be the polarization and the two opposite sides of the aisle. We really, as a libertarian, I think that we can really we can work together better. And I have zero problem working with anybody from either side of the aisle. You know, you have to play nice in the sandbox, and we have to make compromises on all things in government to make sure that the people are the ones that we serve.
Thank you.
Nice.
Representative Smith, turning now to the Native American relationship. What is your understanding of the state's current relationship with the tribes, and how would you work to improve it?
First of all, I think that there's a strained, if not broken, relationship with the tribes. I'm friends with lots of people in Native country. I have worked with colleagues in the legislature and learned so much over the last 6 years about the needs on the reservations. And so the need is great, but the relationship part of it is so important. And having an open door and a willingness to work together and listen to one another. And it's not with us taking necessarily the answer to the Native Americans. It's us being there, ready to work together to try to solve problems that we know exist. And so by working together and being able to have open dialogue, being able to sit together in the same space and work, being allowed to be on certain reservations, that is so important for the progress to take place. So I want to go back to Governor Mick's year of reconciliation. He did a fabulous job, and I hear so many great things about that. And when elected governor, I want to make sure that we restart that. We work again to make sure that the people that were here first are recognized as those people, and that we can sit down together and show the respect necessary to solve real problems here in the state of South Dakota.
Ms. Quint, what would you do to improve relations?
Well, I agree. We definitely do have some wounds to mend there in that relationship between, the Native American community and the rest of the state of South Dakota. I think one of the things that we really need to do is make sure that they're involved in, the legislation. They're involved in the conversation of like what's going on in our state, and they need to be able to make some of the decisions, especially for the lands that they're on, and for the lands, some of the stuff that was originally their land. We should be involving them in the decisions of those issues that are coming up, and we just really need to make sure that they're part of the conversation, and we need to make sure that they're involved.
Governor Noem, your response.
Well, I'm proud of the work that we've been able to do with our Native American tribes.
Pissing them off.
I've invited and hosted many times over tribal leadership from our tribes and invited them to come in and have discussions on new things we can be creative and do together to accomplish for the people in their communities. We've got law enforcement agreements where we come in with Highway Patrol and support tribal police if they ask us to come in and do that. That's been incredibly successful in upholding law and order on our reservations during big events. We've also got counseling services that we've offered and covered costs for mental health and addiction counseling at several of our tribal areas. And this year I put in my budget, requested and received funding to help them promote their communities for tourism, help promote their arts, and given them grants to make sure that their culture is more widely known and people get the chance to experience it. So we have so many opportunities of more that we can do, and I'll continue to be diligent and work with my friends. But I'm proud of the work that we have done and appreciate the relationships there.
Ladies and
Jason
gentlemen,
Roundsberg.
answer segment of tonight's debate. We are going to move on now to our closing statements, 1 minute each, beginning with Governor Noem, followed by Representative Smith, then to Ms. Quint. Again, you each have
Save the best
1
for
minute.
last.
You said she was.
Oh, so I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that. So, it's live TV. Governor Noem, 1 minute for closing statements.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the conversation tonight. The next several years are going to be challenging because President Joe Biden's in the White House. And Amy Smith supports him and supports his policies. His open border policies increased debt and spending, increased taxes, and
Tracey.
increased government control.
Talk some shit
If
about
I'm humbled
Tracey.
enough to be elected as governor for the next 4 years, we will work together to build stronger families. We'll put more money in your pockets. South Dakota has the strongest economy in the country, but we've been through some unprecedented challenges. We experienced flooding, a pandemic, multiple storms that we've never experienced before, but we met those challenges head on and turned them into opportunities. I believe that the best is yet to come. I'd be humbled to receive your support and vote, and God bless you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Governor Noem, thank you so much for that. Representative Smith, 1 minute for a closing statement.
It's been an honor to be here. It's been an honor to debate everybody up here. And I just want to say to people, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to learn about the people you'll be voting for. Most important thing that happens on November 8th is that you vote. No matter which one of us you vote for, that you vote. Exercise that right.
No.
I believe if you want a governor that works for you, a governor that promises to be here working on your behalf, a governor that won't import problems to the state to solve, a governor that works across the aisle by building bridges rather than tearing things down, the choice is clear. On November 8th, I'm Jamie Smith, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Representative Smith, thank you. Ms. Quint, 1 minute for a closing statement.
I want to thank you guys for inviting me, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to bring a third voice to this debate. I think it's very important when we talk about, our government. We have multiple voices, we have multiple viewpoints, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. One of the things that I think is a strong point to my place on the ballot. I'm a young professional. My running mate is also a young professional in the state of South Dakota. We understand that some of the legislation that's been put through our state has been made for the older generation, and we really want to bring a young, fresh, perspective to the state of South Dakota. One of us is from West River, one of us is from East River, so we do understand both sides of the state and the issues that both sides see, and we really just are elated to be able to bring a voice to our generation here in the political aspect of the state.
I like that, our generation.
Basically, it's called the mold.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank the candidates for being
It's like these old yahoos.
viewers watching at home.
Couple old Joe Bidens sitting here up on stage.
Now, Andrea and Nick for our post-debate coverage. Andrea.
We don't have to watch their post-debate crap. We can do our own post-debate. I do want to say real quick, in Jamie Smith's closing statement, he said, regardless of who you vote for, to vote, the most important thing is to vote. And I just want to say that if you don't plan on voting for IM27, then you really shouldn't vote at all. And that's just my opinion.
Nice.
Well, what do you guys think? What are your takeaways?
I think it's awesome that libertarians finally have somebody up on stage that we can cheer on, because otherwise that debate would have sucked if I had just listened to Jamie Smith and Christine hack at each other all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christy was
they're
dodging.
Dude, I was insulted by how much she didn't answer the questions.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't even graceful about it.
No.
It was just bluntly changing the subject with no segue.
She literally
awkward.
I sent Tracey a meme. I said, if you don't know the answer to a question, it was a drag queen on a fake debate literally going, look over there. She literally did that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I noticed too is that, okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot lately. By no means am I a Biden supporter by any means, but is what I've noticed, especially with this hurricane lately, right? So do you guys remember, because it just showed up on my Facebook memories thing, what was it, a few years ago, when we had a different type of hurricane, and it was wiping out what was it, Puerto Rico or something like that, and Trump was like, well, I'm not going to help those guys out because that lady down there is talking shit about me, talking smack about me. Sorry, Greg. And so there was this thing he's not going to help them out just because she was rude. Well, here's the thing. Governor Rob DeSantis or whatever down in Florida is not a fan of Joe Biden, obviously, but guess what? He's crawling to the Joe Biden administration for help with stuff down there. And you don't hear Joe Biden going off about DeSantis does this, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with Nome, because just a few months ago, we had that tornado that hit Castlewood, a town that's just, 10 miles away from me, that wiped out a bunch of houses and stuff. And all Nome did tonight was attack Joe Biden. She brought his name up in every answer in retaliation to Jamie Smith.
I think that's on purpose because I think she's gonna make a play in 2024.
But the stupid thing is, though, is she also went to Joe Biden saying, "Hey, we want federal aid for the Castlewood people, the tornado stuff." It's like, okay, so here you are talking so much crap about the president of the United States, but yet you're going crawling to him for federal aid. So it's just like, if we're so great in all this stuff, and this goes for like any state really that's like has like a different party than the federal administration. It's like you talk so much crap, but yet then you go to them saying like, "Hey, we need your help with money."
Mm-hmm.
It's so ridiculous because it happens all the time. But I will say the one thing that I did like about this debate is the fact that those two went back and forth at each other, which gives Tracey the chance to just give a straight, direct answer without having to deal with the crap that they were doing.
Yep.
Well, that was the missed opportunity in 2020 why we didn't get Joe Jorgensen on the debate stage, or even 2016 you get Gary Johnson on the debate stage, because you have these two political factions that are just going on at each other. So then the Libertarian has the opportunity to come in and seem like the rational one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not often we get accused of being the rational one, but so then we get to come in and kind of get in the middle of it, and we look like the normal one.
Yeah.
I thought she did good. I thought, you could tell she was a little nervous at first. But this is why, though, it'd be nice if there was more than like one debate. It's like there should be 2 or 3 debates, and obviously as you get going, they're going to get better and better, to be honest. And but when you're the incumbent candidate, time and time again, it kind of shows they don't have to do shit, Oops, my bad. I should bleep myself on that one. But yeah, you see this a lot where candidates just aren't debating. Even our other 2 candidates for statewide office, Colin and Tamara, they're doing one debate and that's it. And that's for SDPB. Like they said earlier, Nome didn't do the SDPB one. As far as I know, they're not going to do the SDPB one anymore. Although I think it would still be cool. They were talking about doing one. That's even more free publicity for us.
I think they should. I really liked the idea of giving Christy an empty chair.
Yeah. But I will say it's probably historic tonight was historic in the sense that this was a televised debate, non-SDPB. Our candidates in the past have been on SDPB because they're kind of, regardless of, I almost agree that they're kind of a leftist leaning, but they're at least fair when it comes to like inviting all the candidates.
Yeah.
And Kelloland in the past is not fair. And so luckily, the one debate that Nome did agree to do was this Dakota News Now one. So we were able to, compete.
I do respect the fact that the people hosting the debate like kind of kept going at it, be like, all right, so like, are you going to answer the question that we asked you? Because like they kept giving like like the whole abortion question, and she's just like, Jamie Smith, Joe Biden, blah blah blah, schools and stuff. And it's just like, and then they're just like, okay, so for the record though, like you don't think people should get abortions even in rape and incest. It's like, I'm pro-life. What do you want from me? Like, okay, we want you to answer the freaking question without having to, because we can see right through it. Like, we're not dumb, and it's so pandering. And like, I'll give Jamie Smith credit. He answered, and he didn't pivot a whole lot. Like, granted, I don't agree with a lot of his stuff. He didn't pivot. Obviously, Tracey didn't either. Tracey kept gave her straight answers on the whole situation. And that's showing respect to people, is just giving them the answer. Whether you want to hear that answer or not, that's respectful. But to be like, hey, what's your stance on abortion? They're like, there's immigrants crossing the border. Like, that's not what we asked you about. That's the crap that that's gonna eventually be the downfall of a lot of these people. At least I hope that this is what brings them down.
Yeah. Yeah, it shows gross incompetence when you can't give a straight answer to a straight question.
Yeah.
Well, she left that one event because somebody's just like, hey, I don't think you understand what this ban on abortion is doing. And she's like, I'm leaving because I can't talk to you people. It's like,
yeah, I heard Dusty Johnson made some asinine statement to a lady at a town hall event he was doing, where he was bringing up abortion or something, and she was trying to tell her story about a medical necessity kind of abortion type thing, and he just shut her off. And what did he say?
He told her that she needed to stop with the political theater.
Yeah. I mean, imagine that,
I would have to be escorted out by security
Yeah.
if somebody said something like that to me. Just saying.
Yeah, stop with the political theater. Well, because one thing they always like to say is well, that only happens in 3% of all cases or something like that. And it's well, yeah, but that's why libertarians are against freaking the death penalty usually, because even 3% of people unjustly being murdered by the state is unacceptable.
A little percent is unacceptable.
Yeah.
It's 0.
well, and let's analyze what she was saying earlier too, because someone's bringing I have the after show on a different screen. I can't hear it very good. I'm looking at comments, but some
you
people
can shut that off.
Where it's she's not pro-life, pro-birth. Just 90% of people that say they're pro-life, they don't give two craps about what happens after that baby's born. So yeah, she's just oh well, we're creating all these programs, blah blah blah, to help people. It's okay, but you're going against what you normally would do, where it's we don't do government handouts. Well, that's exactly what you're creating with that.
Yeah.
So it's why not just let the mother choose what's going on? And I'll stand by the fact that I don't believe that 95% of the women that are going to have abortions are doing it because it's fun. They're doing it because there's a reason it needs to be done.
Yeah.
I get there's a small percentage out there that's oh, I just don't want to have a kid. I'm going to go get it. I get that happens, but I think the majority of the times that it happens is because there is a situation going on that they could are not in a position to have that kid, whether it's for health reasons, financial reasons, for criminal reasons, whatever. It's just
yeah, it's not a comfortable decision to make, even if you come to the conclusion. Even for people who may be the small percentage of people that it's not psychologically uncomfortable for them, it's physically uncomfortable. It is not an easy decision to have to make, period.
No. And I would never want to be put into a woman's shoes that has to make that decision, because it's I gotta think, and this is just me philosophizing because I've had 5 drinks so far, because Christina makes me drink. But it's just I gotta think that going even say if a woman is raped or whatever, that's still probably not an easy decision for her to make, to have decide am I gonna get an abortion or not, because there's still probably that lingering feeling of oh well, is this the right thing to do, or can I do this, blah blah blah. That's a tough decision. That's I can't imagine that that's even in those situations is it easy, even when your own health is at risk. How many mothers do you know out there that will sacrifice anything for their kids? So it's so even in those situations, do you think that that's an easy decision for them to make? But then by saying having a government overreach, just being we're going to make that decision for you, and you're going to deal with it. Like we will like possibly put you in death's way because of our personal preference. And if you want to bring religious aspect into it, I can't imagine that there's a God that says like, I want to like create all these problems and havoc for you to like prove a point. Like, I don't know, like it does not make
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden,
man.
Like I said, I'm like, I don't know how many drinks I have. This is my 5th drink right now. I got one more before I have to go back upstairs to get more.
Oh, jeez.
I might have to pee in a sink over here in a second. I don't know.
Oh man,
I'm not going upstairs.
We're gonna have to edit this later.
What? I can't say pee.
So what other topics? They talked about marijuana. I am 27.
I honestly
they all kind of said they would approve it, but
I honestly thought her response with the farming question was really good because once again, Noam pivoted. I mean, Jamie had a decent answer, and this is where one of those things where like libertarians don't discuss the whole farming issue a whole lot. You know, it's just like, other than like say Colin and Kent, like out West River, we don't have like, it doesn't seem like we have a lot of like agriculture representation in the party. So, but her whole answer of just being like, all right, like we need to get everybody else out of the way of farming. And for a Noam to sit up there and be like, oh, I've made so many tax cuts for the farmers. And like I said in our private chat, like my in-laws are ranchers, like both my brother-in-law and my father-in-law and like numerous others, right? And they've paid tens of thousands, if not more, in income taxes. It's like, so you're not telling me that you're saving or that you're trying to help all these farmers out. It's just like, how is that helping them by like making them pay that much for providing basically the food for America or whatever, like providing the economy for South Dakota? That to me, it just does not make sense. Because
you meant property taxes, right?
What's that?
You meant property taxes. You said income taxes.
No, I'm saying like based off of like what they make off of like cattle sales, whatever, like whatever. Yeah, they get taxed on that crap.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of it is property tax too, because a lot of farmers own a lot of
massive amount of land. It adds up.
Yeah.
It adds up. If I was her, I think I would have pivoted to immigration, and I would have just said that our farmers are desperate for help right now. A lot of them are trying to hire people. And honestly, Republicans, and I would have kind of called them out. I said Republicans constantly carve out making it easier to get farmhands and milkmaids. But, we got 30,000 jobs in South Dakota unfilled. So I would I would focus on making immigration easier,
Didn't you hear they're all criminals and terrorists? We don't want them milking cows. It's like, I don't want some guy that's going to blow up a building milking my cattle.
Oh, yeah, you do. That's the freshest milk.
This is terrorist milk right here. Really
no, but seriously, they do farms, especially dairy farms in South Dakota and things like that. They do rely on immigrant labor, like low wage pay, and I don't know, that would have just been one way to, if you're talking about ag and helping out farmers, it's like, well, immigration's probably kind of holding back some farms with this,
right.
And I don't know, Christy talked about like wanting to help the meat stuff expand here. As far as I know, we don't have a dairy processing plant over here anymore. My cousins used to have a dairy farm, and they shut down because they were having to ship their milk to Sioux Falls. It was a lower grade by the time it got there, and it wasn't worth it for them to do it. And they switched over to beef because of that. I'm not aware of there being Adam, geez. I'm not aware of there being dairy over here at all.
Well, and put into concept like the whole like there's that push for like a federal minimum wage of like $15 or whatever. So put into the concept of like, okay, so a lot of these like dairy farmers need to have the extra hands to help them on their dairy farms. Now it's like, oh, if they have to pay them all $15 or whatever, okay, well, your milk at the store is going to be like $10 a gallon all of a sudden. And it's not because like, because people are like, oh, that's just because CEOs and stuff are greedy. No, it's because like that's just how economics works. Where it's just like if a company that is selling the milk, like they need to make a living too. You know, like Joe Schmo down there that has a dairy farm needs to pay the people that helps him out, and now he has to pay him a ton. So now he's gonna have to sell his product for a lot more, which means now we're gonna pay a lot more at the store. So it's just like, so what is it? Do you mind if somebody that might have a different color skin than you that comes from across the border helps milk those cows for like a different wage, like a smaller wage? Is that okay so that you can still get milk for like $4 a gallon? Or do you want to pay $10 an hour just to make sure that it's a nationalized like American that's doing it?
Almond milk, grow almonds. What else did they talk about?
Show me the nipple on an almond there, Greg.
Yeah, I actually think those are bad for the environment anyways, because the amount of water, the amount of water that goes into producing almonds, and they grow them out in the desert, basically in California, so they don't have water to begin with, and then they take tens and tens of thousands of gallons to produce this freaking jug, you know. It's like, it's one of those things. It's like people think it's environmentally friendly, but honestly, it's not.
It's not. No.
But what else? I can't remember what else they kind of talked about.
We talked about the Help Medicare initiative.
Oh yeah. I don't really like that expanded Medicaid or whatever, but
The broad of Kristi Noem's ethics violations.
That was her bringing up Roundsburg over and over again.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think she lied a couple times too, like because she said that nothing came about that ethics probe, which with her daughter, which isn't true at all. She got reprimanded for that. Yeah. They found that she did give her daughter. She literally said tonight that she did not give her daughter preferential treatment, and she acted like the investigation, like, you know, absolved her, and that's totally not what happened. In fact, I shared an article the other day about that ethics complaint had given her a punishment, but they weren't telling anybody what it was, and they were acting like it was privileged information. And it's like, well, that's not transparency in government either. No. You're saying you're saying you did something to her because of this, but yet you can't tell us what it was. Like,
what we did was a secret, and what they probably did was stop it.
I'm sure it was nothing, but what was the other thing?
That's the thing that offended me the most. She said that she was the only one calling out Roundsburg from the very beginning. Baloney.
Even the Democrats called out Roundsburg and told him to resign.
Literally everybody in the state was telling him to resign.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was but the other thing she lied about was that she said that the plane, that she had never used it for unofficial purposes, and the ethics complaint right now is that she flew, like, her and her daughter to some friend's or her daughter's wedding, which was not official business.
No.
So, like, in my opinion, she actually lied twice in the debate.
But it's because there was
the provable lies. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Well, he is a disgraced attorney general. I'm not going to argue with her there.
Yeah.
It's amazing how she would turn on someone as long as like it benefited her. She's like, he killed the guy. It's like, we know. We
She's
were
such
like
a-
ahead of that.
She's such a Christian woman. Lady, pull the plank out of your eye before you try to pull the splinter out of somebody else's. Come on now.
I will say, though, they kind of wasted a bunch of questions just going after her and all of her nonsense when it's like, you guys didn't really talk about a whole lot. Like, it was only an hour, and you guys really only asked maybe 5 or 6 questions that didn't specifically have to do with Nome, and then it's kind of a disservice to our candidate, because what the fuck does Tracey have to say about this nonsense? You know, what's your opinion about half of this crap? Like, come on. Like, can we talk about what's your stance on, Second Amendment? What's your stance? I don't know, just more issues, I think.
Yeah, for as much as like Nome was just like, oh well, he's like an extremist and he loves Biden. It's like, all right, let's bring up Second Amendment then. Like you said, let's talk about guns and stuff, because I guarantee the Libertarian Party has a much better stance on the Second Amendment than any Republican does.
Yeah.
Well, or how Tracey pivoted to like criminal justice reform in that one answer. How about a question about criminal justice reform? How about a question about drugs or fentanyl or I don't know. It just seemed like they really went after, not that I'm sympathetic to Noam, but I'm just saying it really just seemed like they really focused on her shortcomings and maybe not so much on the actual issues. What about inflation? I heard them they kind of bring that up a bunch, but how about why didn't the news people ask about that the economy? They really didn't go into any of that.
Yeah, I didn't understand why. I get it at the same time, but they're like inflation hits like at a federal level almost, where it's just like, yeah, there's a few things maybe you can do at a state level to ease that, but that's a majority federal issue. So it's like, I don't know. You can't expect a lot of solution out of the candidates at a state level,
Well, I don't know about that, Adam, because Kristi Noem's is gonna stop the open borders from South Dakota,
right? And we all know that it's because of open borders.
South Dakota can exert its influence across the entire country. If you just believe in it,
Like I said, I was just a fan of the fact that those two went back and forth at each other, which I was expecting. I think we all were. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, they left Tracey to be like, "Well, what about you?" And she's just like, "All right, here's my answer." It's like, bam, this is the response. I don't need to drag their crap into like what I'm saying. And that's the way it should be. That's the way they should be. Where it's like, hey, Jamie Smith, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And he's like, this is what I think. And not like, well, no, she's doing this. It's like, I don't give crap. She's going to talk about that in a second. Yeah. Tell me what you think. If you can't win an election based off of your policies, then you don't deserve to be elected. But if the only way you're winning an election is by trying to make the other candidates seem like lesser people or you're attacking them on that, that means you do not have good policies.
Yeah. Yeah. I get so sick and tired of watching them do that. They get asked a question and go, well, my opponent thinks. My opponent is an extremist. My opponent this. What do you think? We asked you the question.
Right.
It should be more of like Ravnsburg's criminal investigation interview, I guess. That's how it should be. They should just keep repeating the question over and over until they're forced to respond to it directly.
Well, yeah, and honestly, a lot of that's on the moderators too, to be like they should be like, start cutting them off, be like, listen, you're not answering the question. And like, answer the direct question or I'm not going to ask you the next one. Like, that's the way the rules should go. Because it's like, I asked you about abortion. I asked you about this. I asked you about this. Answer that question without talking about Jamie, without talking about this, without talking about, answer the freaking question.
They could be real rules lawyers about it. The rules say you have 1 minute to answer this question. You're not answering the question, next person.
Well, luckily they didn't really allow rebuttals because otherwise those two would have just been
right. I kind of wished just a little bit that they would have like went after Tracey for something, just to give her an opportunity to like get some like, I guess, heat on her. Not because like she deserves to be attacked, but so then people would be like, okay, like obviously they're upset about something she has to say. So like they're threatened by something she has to say. You know what I mean? So like it would have been kind of funny to see them be like, wow, you know, Tracey just said blah, blah, blah. It's just like, all right, well, you're acknowledging that maybe she has a good idea that you're like intimidated by it.
I think they both have a strategy of like trying not to mention us because they know that them mentioning us gives us more of a platform.
Yeah.
They want to bury
his
us.
body language for the whole thing. He kept motioning over to Noam like, all right, this is the main deal right here. So it's like, no, you have another opponent too, and
they should have put Tracey in between them.
Honestly, yeah.
So they can't point at each other without accidentally.
In the middle, like, all right, calm down. I'll answer the freaking question. You guys don't know how to.
Yeah.
I like when Dakota News Now is all like, well, we can't let you have a rebuttal because if we let you have a rebuttal, we've got to let everybody have a rebuttal.
Just like
one more person.
Just like when it's just like, can I bring a snack to school? Well, if I let you have snacks in school, everybody's gonna want to bring snacks to school. Yeah. And then we're just gonna have all these problems. If I let you have gum in class, then everybody's gonna want to have gum in class.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll be respectful to the fact that like Jamie didn't pivot as much. A little, but he didn't pivot as much. Tracey gave direct answers to the question. She didn't bring up, like, even when they tried to bait her into it a little bit, like, hey, like, do you feel like she's abusing her power? She's just like, listen, I'm going to run a transparent, like, candidacy. Like, what I do is going to be the will of the people. I'm going to be open and honest with everybody, you know, like that. She could have easily just spent her whole time being like, yeah, Noam sucks at this, blah, blah, blah. She didn't. And that's honestly what a candidate should do regardless of party. But the other two parties are excellent at that kind of crap.
Yeah.
Are we doing one of these for the Duprell?
Obviously we are. Obviously.
Oh, man. Can I come to that one too?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to have to bring even more alcohol. I'm already on my last one. I'm going to have to go upstairs after a little bit. This sucks.
Do you have any predictions for the call-in debate?
I do feel
Dusty Johnson.
Dusty's going to pivot just as much as Christy did, is my prediction. Because he did the same when we went to his town hall. I went to his town hall in Rapid with Colin and his people. And that's exactly what he did when he was asked questions at that town hall.
Yeah, he's going to pivot as much as Christy and use his hands as much as Jamie. He's going to combine both their powers together into one force.
I do predict that with that, and just knowing like, and just kind of like we've all talked with Colin. We kind of know the person he is. And it's going to be a two-way debate. That's the thing. Like, it's not going to have like that Democratic opponent where they can constantly, or Dusty can constantly shift his attention to that. Dusty's going to have to shift his attention towards Colin, and he's going to have to answer Colin's responses. And I do believe that Colin probably will be, I don't want to say aggressive, but he's going to be like, listen, like, Dusty's done this kind of thing. Dusty votes for this kind of thing. You know, it's not going to be one of those things like, well, what do you feel about this? What do you feel about this? Those questions won't go like that. They will go towards like, hey, you know, just like we kind of saw tonight, where it's going to be like, all right, Dusty, meaning you're the incumbent. This is your record. How do you justify your record? Colin, how do you feel about it? Like, that's how it's going to go. So it's like, it's going to be a very interesting thing. Because like I said, Dusty doesn't have a Democratic opponent to pivot to and attack. He doesn't know anything about Colin. Like
Colin doesn't have a record for him to attack.
There's nothing. And Colin has all the advantage, really, because it's like, all right, try to find something on me. I don't have a voting record for you to attack. Like, I'm coming from my ranch. Like, Like,
That's
try
his
to
only
find.
tag. You're a rancher. What do you know about being a... That's like his
And
only
honestly-
thing you can imagine.
Honestly, if the South Dakotans are like buying into stereotypes, like, because that's what Nome tries to sell, like, well, I'm a rancher, I ride horses. Well, it's be like, all right, Dusty Johnson doesn't, but Colin does actually. So it's like, Colin is the guy that you like. You're already worshiping Nome for a lot of times. It's like, all right, well, Colin's that guy, except for like his family's been doing it for like 1,000 years or whatever he said. I don't know, but like
Oh, I just thought of the best Colin meme, making fun of like Christie's book, Not My First Rodeo. There'll be a picture of Colin herding cattle, and it'll say, Not My First Cattle Drive. Anyway, I thought it was good. Colin's got a parade tomorrow in Mitchell, so if you're in Mitchell, you can check him out tomorrow at the DWU parade.
There.
I heard that too.
Yeah, that's been like a big deal. Is that Devin's going to be there with nothing but a button on.
Just one button? I think you need more flair.
It's like a big, like a belt buckle button.
Yeah. I told him he should dress up like an ICP guy, like a face paint and some like,
oh my gosh,
ICP shirts. Maybe spray Fago at everybody out in the crowds and be like, "Go for Colin!"
Are you down with the clown, Devin?
He's like whipping candy at kids, like a fucking MLB pitcher, throwing 90 off the mound.
Also, I know you're trying to wind down, but I want to bring something else up. I don't think it's a good look on Nome to constantly bring up, be like, Jamie Smith supports BLM. It's like, okay, like, so, so you're like, don't get me wrong. Like, I understand there's a BLM movement and a BLM organization, and that's completely different. So it's like, I don't know which one Jamie Smith is a part of, but it's just like, okay, so you're saying that you're pissed off that a bunch of people are upset about some crimes against the black community, and you're going to hold that against him?
She just pandered into her base. They use buzzwords. It's just like critical race theory. Like, if that were me up on the debate stage, I would have started with, I don't even know what that term honestly means. And most people can't actually tell me what that means. Like, because Noam's sitting here talking about, well, we're going to teach the true and accurate history of South Dakota.
No, she's
but then at the very end, she gets into her nationalism, and she's like, well, love our country and this and that. And it's like, so what is critical race theory exactly? It's like, I don't know.
We already don't teach the true history here. When I was going through school here, I mean, we learned that cutesy little Thanksgiving story. We learned that when the white settlers came through South Dakota, they traded beads with the Native Americans, and it was all cute and fun. We didn't learn about Wounded Knee. We didn't learn about Custer. We didn't learn about any of that stuff in school.
And when you did,
we learned the cutesy white man not so bad stuff.
Yeah, and when you did learn about it, it was more like, this like little thing kind of happened.
Yeah,
but it's not a big
little
deal.
thing.
I mean, like they didn't get along.
And the natives agreed to move to the shitty part of South Dakota. It's like, no.
In the meantime, it's just like, hey, why is Crazy Horse such an important figure? Be like, oh, well, I'll tell you because like he went through some crap, and like he was like doing some serious crap to like help defend his nation at the time. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's why there's a giant sculpture of him out in the Black Hills. It's and like she said, this isn't something you're gonna want to teach a 6-year-old.
No,
like I get why, like in the first grade, it's like we're gonna learn about Thanksgiving. It's like, how about we just don't? Like, nobody needs to know about like a fake story. Like, just be like, hey, Thanksgiving's a time when you guys get together with your family and eat turkey and you're thankful for something. You don't need to tell a fake story to go along with it. That's stupid.
No, we don't need to lie to young kids because they can't handle the truth. We just save it until they're old enough to handle it. And if I was old enough in high school to sit and watch videos of 9/11 on repeat in school on 9/11, then I was old enough to learn about Wounded Knee.
Right. And I constantly think about, because like my kids are in that elementary school level. Like my youngest is in 1st grade, my older is in 4th grade, and she asks me questions about this kind of stuff, and it's just like, I want to be able to discuss certain things with you, but you need to be older to truly grasp like some of the things that went on. Like I don't want you to like get scared of certain things like because you're 9, but it's just like some serious crap happens in this country that like you're eventually going to need to learn about, and you need to know about it so you don't have this prejudice towards other people, other religions, other genders, other whatever it is. It's just like, it's like, so yeah, you can. The thing is, they try to polarize the education thing and be like, oh, either you're for CRT or you're for not CRT. It's like, no, we're for the fact that like we need to like leave this up to education, like educators. We need to leave it up to communities, and the standards should be set by people that actually have the proof of it. Not like, well, we don't want to make a certain group feel bad. It's like certain groups should have to feel bad, and the fact that if you feel bad, that means that your history has something.
History should make you uncomfortable. Studying history should make you uncomfortable.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that like you create a future where you're not uncomfortable.
Yes.
That's exactly what it's all about. It's like, if that's why I've always said, like, get rid of like gym class in schools and put in mental health instead. Because like from the time that like kids are in kindergarten, from the time they graduate, if they focus more on how relationships work, how mental illness works, how mental health works, they'll spend less time bullying each other. They'll spend more time being empathetic towards each other. It's just like, hey, how many laps can you run in 5 minutes? Like, that's not going to help you in the real world. It's not. But being empathetic and being able to understand people and treat people with respect based off of their differences, like, that's what counts. And people will take that kind of concept and be like, oh, well, you're pushing all this woke agenda on us. It's like, it's not woke. It's called compassion. And that's what kids should be taught.
Hell yeah. When are you running for office,
I was going to say Governor Jewel.
No, that's Tracy's deal.
Wait your turn.
I want
2026 platform.
I want Tracey and Ashley to keep this position going for the next cycles. Like,
well, if if Noam ends up running for president or something, and heaven forbid she actually won, that would mean there would be a special election come 2024. I was going to ask Tracey if she was ready to run again.
Well, that's what I said. I think we have.
Say that. We should probably wait for this one to be over.
I think we have great candidates in Tracey and Ashley, and then Colin as well, to where it's just like, regardless of how the election turns out, I think is what we need is consistency in it, to be like, okay, like I remember Tracey from the last election. Like I want to hear a little bit more of what she has to say. Or just like if we put someone different up there, it's like, now we have a different person.
So we're saying we should have went with Kurt again. A little consistency, a little Kurt Evans consistency.
I'm gonna pretend my camera's frozen. This like,
oh, man.
I don't know Kurt in person, so I can't say.
I'm probably gonna hop off, but if you guys want to keep chatting, go ahead. I'm going out of town tomorrow, so and I'm gonna make some last minute salsa tonight. So I'm gonna get cutting.
Oh, okay. Weird flex, bro.
Yeah, I get cutting on them vegetables that are sitting downstairs.
It's like nobody asked, but he's just like, yeah, I'm making salsa.
Last harvest of the garden. It's like Noam said, it's cold in the winter. Winter's
coming.
Winter's coming.
Because wasn't that a response to the abortion question too?
This is the
She's
first thing
like,
she said almost.
You're like, what do you think about abortion? It's cold in the winter, guys.
It's hot in the summer.
Yeah.
And prices are up.
And winter's coming.
Yeah, winter's coming, guys. So like if you haven't bought a coat yet, you might want to think about it. Because like we all know how winter works. Like it's gonna get cold one day and you're gonna be like, hey, where's my coat? I don't have a coat. And then like you have to go out in like maybe a sweatshirt. And you're still kind of cold. Then you have to pre-warm your car. And then you might be late for work because of it. And they're like, okay, but abortion though, like where are you at with that?
Winter's coming. Maybe we should just end the broadcast on that note.
Yeah, winter's coming. Let's just have like that meme of the Game of Thrones guy, like winter's coming, and this have Kristi Noem's face on it. Like, I think that should be a new trend of memes. It's like, hey, what's your stance on abortion? Winter is coming.
It's hot in the summer.
Hot in the summer, guys.
It's hot in the summer.
Hey, at least there she was spitting facts.
It's like, man, why did we waste so much time on Bill Nye in school when we knew we could get Kristi Noem in the future?
They should have asked her if that was a climate change reference.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, I didn't think you guys believe in climate change.
Yeah,
But it's getting hotter in the summer and colder in the winter.
You know, Corgan was there in the background. He should have been like, holy shit, what? No way. Just hear his voice in the background and be like, man, if somebody would have told me that, I would have out of the state a long time ago.
I guess he got a front row view. That was cool.
Yeah, he showed us some pictures in the private chat back there. And it sounds like Tracey played nice with them. She said she shook hands with those guys. I don't know if it was before or after, but that's just our candidate. She's a nice gal. She's going to be the respectful person.
She's a real South Dakotan with
She's a real. You know, they always talk about Minnesota nice, but we have South Dakota nice, and that's what Tracey Quint is. You know, if she wins, it's going to be a real shocker when everybody has to realize that she changed her last name. She got married.
Mm-hmm.
Same with our other. Same with our lieutenant.
Yeah, they're both changing.
Yeah, they'll be like, "What the hell? Like, we voted for these other gals, and like now there's like."
I think she's hyphenating.
Oh, really?
On her Facebook, yeah. I'm not sure though. Did
you change yours? Yeah.
No, I haven't yet. I figured it would just be simpler to leave it until after the election was over.
Huh.
And I do plan to change it, and then I can be like, Ashley Strand, who?
Yeah.
Never
heard that is a pain in the ass to go through. My wife told me, like, when we got married, like that, like having to go through all that documentation crap, like, just sucked.
It's a lot.
It's the government for you.
Yep.
All the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
She should have said that. What's the one thing you would have done on day one? She'd been like, make it easier to change your last name when you get married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should just be like,
when you fill out your marriage license, you have to put on the marriage license paperwork, what do you intend for your name to be afterwards?
You should have made it a whole new name.
If my marriage license is submitted to you, you switch it.
You should have made like up a new name. Like, I'm going to be Ashley Optimus Prime. That's what I'm.
Change your name to a symbol.
Yeah.
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 The politician formerly known as Ashley.
Nice. That's a good one.
I like it. These are all good ideas for the next election cycle too. It'd be good publicity. Someone to be like, "Aren't you the guy that changed your name to a symbol?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I am actually, and I'm running for whatever."
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "What does your wife think about that?" I'd be like, "She's actually pretty mad about it, but you know, whatever." She left a few weeks ago. It's okay.
Well, all right. Looks like we'll get back together on the 24th and do another. Or it's the 20th.
Thank you, Hedgehog, for hosting this event. This is fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks for letting me come on and get buzzed up and ramble on and talk too much.
You and your Bud Lights.
South Dakota away, man.
It's only
That's
been
what everybody's doing watching the
4
debate.
White Claws. So I started with a Bud Light and I ended with a Bud Light. I put 4 White Claws in between.
It's a symphony, man. It's like poetic.
Yeah. Like Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's alcoholic Shakespeare is what I'm working
Tune
on
in
tonight,
next
guys.
Sunday for more Shakespearean podcasting on the Hedgehog Watchdog.
I'll just be that guy, like, what was it, Conan back in the day, where he had a guest that just didn't talk much, and he's just like, I know Tom Green, where there was that guy in the way back that just, like, sat there. That's what I'll be. I'll just be on camera, and I'll just... I won't have anything verbal to say. I'll just drink and nod. And
Those are the good jobs. Those good jobs are always taken.
well, like I said, thank you guys for letting me come on and hang out with you guys. Thanks for hosting it, and this will be fun with the DeCrowell Johnson showdown. Yeah, and I'm expecting you to make like a super sweet like trailer for it.
Yeah.
I'll think of a nice theme.
I want some some Spielberg stuff, explosions and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do it.
Like take the trailer from like Avengers Infinity War and like put Colin's face on there. What the hell happened here?
Well, I can't use that because they'll copyright infringe.
Copyright.
I could use The Amazing Man or something though. All right.
Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks to Ashley Strand.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Governor, vote Quint Strand. All right, see you guys later.
See ya.
Peace.